I think right now we're kind of a bubble team. Potentially we can beat Mixup, and potentially we can beat Elevate. I think that's how, as a team, we see it. Banny's team is a little harder for us for some reason, but I'm looking in the next few weeks to try to put in more demo reviews as a team and really get things cleared up, because up till now, we've kind of just been running things based on scrims, and we don't have any really defined strats. So I think we're going to put our nose to the grindstone in the next few weeks in terms of when we're scrimming. We're going to really try to make everything as scripted as possible for everyone on the same page. For when we get to LAN, it'll just be everyone will know what's up.
So you definitely think your team has what it takes to be in that grand finals, if not even go toe-to-toe with whatever team ends up being in those grand finals?
Yeah, I think the competition is really close right now, enough so that, again, I say that Elevate can beat Froyo, obviously. We have a lot of trouble with them, but I think we think we can beat Elevate and Mixup, so we can definitely get into the grand finals and if things work out. And it really just comes down to preparation leading up to the event and making sure we show up and perform on the level that we think we can.
Kind of speaking of Elevate, from an outside of the invite area perspective, it's kind of been a surprise this season as Elevate has taken games off Froyo Tech and is sitting in the top spot with no losses at all this season. How do you view Elevate and their move from being fourth last season at the LAN, at ESEA LAN, to now being the #1 seed going into the LAN season here?
Well, I think last season it was we were basically even with Elevate. I think on that Saturday we played better games against them in Dallas. So, but they were close games. I mean, it looked fairly convincing, I guess, to the cast, but they were close games. Process was ridiculously close. So they weren't really like a set in stone fourth. I don't think anybody would say that. But obviously, they're performing better this season. I would put that down to keeping basically all of their personnel, just keeping the same people. Fragile hasn't been playing for them regularly, but Kozen is kind of the same medic in the way they play. They both really do a lot of the main calling and just try to stay alive and hit their arrows and stuff. In a way, they basically have the same roster as last season. The change to Kozen wasn't big. And being able to keep the 6 same players for 2 seasons in a row is huge. That really doesn't happen in TF2. So it's somewhat expected for them to get this much better. I guess it's a little surprise for them to be beating Froyo both times they played this season on ESEA, but I still think they're like a beatable team. We did beat them on Gully Wash in CEVO, and they've lost in CEVO to Froyo as well. So they're first seed right now. I think close to Froyo. I'd still put Elevate as first seed, but it's nothing like the previous seasons where Banny's teams have been going 16-0. I would say
they're fourth right now, but I think that's just because they need to play a match. Classic Mixup with their roster changes. How do you think that's going to affect going into the postseason here and beyond?
That's a tough question because Mixup is always a wild card in their regular season performance. I don't think everyone kind of knows they don't take it as seriously as LANs, and they show up to play at LAN, and they tend to perform better on LAN. A big part of it is just atmosphere. They do really well with momentum and being able to cheer each other on and stuff like that in the venue. In terms of overall individual skill, they're probably like, besides losing Seagull, their whole personnel really hasn't dropped that much in skill level, so they have potential to do very well. We'll have to see.
Kind of switching gears here back to GXL. GXL shaped from being a small community LAN, ran in part by a community mainstay, the Fragile, into a community mainstay that has turned into the biggest LAN that North American TF2 has ever seen. How is this going to affect competitive TF2 moving forward, do you think? Do you think we're going to see more teams? Do you think we're going to see more sponsors? With the introduction of Elevate last season, or I guess they go under a different name this season, but they are essentially the same sponsor. Do you think we're going to see more MGOs kind of come into TF2?
I'm not entirely sure. We'll kind of have to see what kind of reception GXL ends up getting. I think if CEVO puts a good amount of coverage in, I know they get a lot of viewers for their CSGO matches and things like that, so I think if the sponsors involved for GXL, for the GXL LAN, I know Fragile and some other people gathered together sponsors to get a prize pot for that. So if those sponsors think their money was put to good use, I think that would probably have them consider sponsoring more LANs or maybe teams. So yeah, I think it's a possibility that North American TF2 could just grow a significant amount from this if it gets a good amount of viewership.